Hello, my name is Joe, and welcome to my channel. So, you know who's been killing it in RWBY this volume? Jaune. He's been level-headed, effective, and, in Ren's own words, fearless. Seeing how much he's grown since his days as an earnest but extremely misguided wannabe really showcases the great character development he's had. Because of that, and because we didn't get a new episode of RWBY this week, I decided to cover an old theory that has been discussed by several people before. That theory being that Jaune is somehow related to the last King of Vale, one of Ozpin's past incarnations. Now, I've seen this theory in several forms, whether it be he's directly related to the last King of Vale, or related to a close ally of him, so I'm just going to be showcasing all the evidence I could find for this theory, as well as an alternative I thought of while researching it. So, let's get into it. Now, the most important aspect of this theory, the real crux of it, is Jaune's sword. One of the first things that's revealed to us about Jaune is that his sword is not originally his, but rather it belonged to an ancestor.
It's a hand-me-down. My great-great-grandfather used it to fight in the war.
Well, that's pretty interesting. This is also the first time in the show that the Great War was mentioned. Jaune's family situation is further expanded upon in the Jaundice arc, when he tells Pyrrha,
My father, my grandfather, and his father before him were all warriors. They were all heroes.
Huh. Well, when learning that, it really puts Jaune's moment in the intro into a new context. He is staring up at the statue in Beacon's courtyard with a sense of nervousness and almost shame. Like a kid that was caught with their hand in the cookie jar. We also see that one of the figures in the statue carries a sword very similar to Jaune's. Not exactly the same, the statue's kind of tapers in slightly near the hilt, but close enough to believe that there's a good chance the statue sword is based on Jaune's. These cannot be an accident or a coincidence. This is Jaune's major storyline of the first volume, and a very clear focus in the intro. Given these aspects, it can be pretty easily assumed that this figure in the statue is one of Jaune's ancestors. Likely, even the great-great-grandfather he mentioned was the previous owner of his sword. Now, this doesn't mean that his ancestor is the King of Vale, though. I mean, that would be pretty crazy. Well, let's take a look at what we know of the King of Vale. Pretty much everything we know about the king comes from the World of Remnant episode on the Great War, and while there's a lot of information given in this video, there are two important details for this theory. The first of these actually came at the end, when it was revealed that it was the King of Vale who established the Huntsman Academies. This would give credence to the idea that the person in the statue is in fact the King of Vale. After all, who better to have a statue of in the courtyard of a school than the one who founded it, as well as the last king of the kingdom it is based in. The figure next to him may even be the leader of Vacuo, whose soldiers were shown to carry axe-like weapons. Even though the leader of Vacuo seems fairly clearly a Faunus, and the figure in the statue doesn't share the trait as shown in the World Remnant episode, Blake does appear to focus on that figure before shifting to the Grimm after it is revealed that she used to be part of the White Fang. I don't know, kind of flimsy evidence there, but I could see it. The second piece of evidence regarding the king being related to Jaune is that of the king's sword, which, along with his scepter, were the only weapons he brought into the final battle of the war with him. In the World of Remnant episode, contrary to the rest of his color scheme aside from his crown, the king's sword is shown to be yellow and sending out waves of devastation. While, like most of the visuals, this is simply an artistic depiction of the actual history, the generally accepted theory on this is that the crown and the sword are the relics of choice and destruction respectively. While this may have been the case, the normal population would not have known that. They probably wouldn't have even known the sword he used was different from the one he used in any other given battle. And because of this, a name would likely have sprung up for the weapon which the king wielded with such power. Something related to the golden devastation it unleashed, related to all the lives it took. Something like the Yellow Death. And what do you know? Jaune's sword is named Crocea Mors, Latin for the Yellow Death. Speaking of the sword's name, you may have heard of Crocea Mors before. While not necessarily famous, it is known to be the name of Julius Caesar's sword in certain legends. And that brings up another interesting point. Each of the kingdom's symbols are shown to have the relic they are associated with showcased in some variation, with swords in Vacuo, a staff in Atlas, and a kind of lantern in Mistral. Vale, associated with the relic of choice, doesn't have a crown though. Instead, it has a laurel wreath. And who is one of the most popular figures to be shown wearing a laurel wreath as though it were a crown? That's right, Julius Caesar. Given all of this, it is seeming more and more likely that this could actually be true. That the King of Vale may be based on Julius Caesar, and Jaune might actually be related to him. However, there is a small but significant problem. Much like how the sword suggests this theory could be the case, Jaune's shield suggests it might not. Now, you may be wondering, why would his shield contradict this theory? Well, Jaune's shield has always been a part of his weapon set. It isn't just the sword that is called Crocea Mors, it's the entire set. However, we've never seen anyone who might have wielded Crocea Mors using the shield portion. The statue in front of Beacon had neither a shield nor a sheath, and the King of Vale actively carried with him a scepter as opposed to a shield. Now, maybe this doesn't mean anything. Maybe the shield portion was added later as an upgrade, like how Jaune had the set upgraded to combine into a greatsword. However, I think it points towards something else. In the Historia Regum Britanniae, it talks about a prince named Nennius, who fought Caesar and stole his sword, using it himself until his death to injuries a couple weeks later. The way he stole the sword was that it got stuck in his shield. Did you ever wonder where Jaune and his family are from? I mean, I always wanted to assume Vale. He seemed like a Vale kind of guy, you know? But Saffron lives in Argus in northern Anima, and his family would go to Jaune on vacation, another town in Anima. Is Jaune from Mistral? I mean, it's by no means hard and fast evidence, but it seems a bit weird to regularly travel to another continent just to go camping, especially in a world with Grimm. Plus, it would mean every member of Team Juniper was from Mistral, or at least Anima, originally. Nora and Ren from Kuro Yuri, Pyrrha from Argus, and Jaune, well, we don't have specifics, but from Mistral in general. And who did Vale fight in the Great War? Mistral. By this logic, it's possible that instead of Jaune's ancestor being the King of Vale, it could have been someone who fought the King of Vale, survived, and was able to steal his sword as a trophy, perhaps even prompting the king to obtain the Relic of Destruction to finish the war quickly. This would put the earlier episodes in the hilarious context that Ozpin basically saw the descendant of the guy who stole his sword and thought, you know, I'm gonna throw this kid off a cliff. I don't care his transcripts are fake. I'm gonna just toss him. Personally, I prefer the idea of him being related to the King of Vale, but that's just me. Maybe it could be a combination of both, with Jaune being the Nennius of this scenario who stole the sword of the king, his ancestor. Now, I'll admit, both of these theories have some pretty flimsy evidence, and you can pretty easily poke holes in them. If Jaune was from Mistral, why didn't we meet his family in Volume 4 or 5? Why should Jaune be descended from the King of Vale instead of just a random soldier who just used that style of sword? Well, in response to that, just the ideas that I presented are a lot cooler, like concept-wise, so that's what I went with. Regardless, if the show goes down either of these routes, either being related to the king or related to some Nennius-inspired character, it makes me believe more and more that Jaune will wield the Sword of Destruction. As we discussed in an earlier theory, the sword is likely to be based on Excalibur, pretty much being the most famous sword in all of fiction. And either of these theories being true would make it so Jaune, or perhaps even one of his sisters, would work really well as a King Arthur stand-in. If he's related to the King of Vale, it creates a clear parallel to how Arthur was secretly King Uther's son, and was just hidden away until he was ready to receive Excalibur and become the true king. If Jaune's ancestor, or Jaune himself, was a Nennius stand-in, well, I told you Nennius came from the Historia Regum Britanniae, right? Well, that book is most known for one thing, and that is for popularizing the myth of one King Arthur. No matter which route the show goes down, it leads me to one conclusion: that Jaune actually has a really good chance of wielding the Sword of Destruction, which is really weird to think about, but also it's super, super cool, so I want to believe it'll happen. Those are just my thoughts, though. What do you think? Agree? Disagree? Think everything I just said has very little supporting evidence and is mostly just conjecture? Let me know in the comments below. And, subscribe for more. I'm trying to put out a video every week, so you might find something you like. Till next time, safe journeys, my friends.